When you spend a few dollars on a cheap pipe cutter that promises instant cuts and then end up with jagged edges, uneven bevels, and a whole lot of wasted metal, the regret hits hard. I've seen that story play out in a handful of small shops and home garages, where the tool that was supposed to save time ends up costing more in rework. That's why I wanted to take a closer look at a machine that markets itself as a smarter alternative, an electric magnetic tunnel pipe torch that also does beveling, runs on 220V, and claims professional-grade precision. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the biggest hesitation people have before pulling the plug on a pipe cutting torch is whether the machine will actually give a clean, repeatable cut without turning the whole job into a guessing game. In my experience, the biggest difference between a decent torch and a budget model is how consistently it holds the magnetic field while you're feeding the torch around a curved surface. If the magnet slips, the torch wanders and you get an uneven seam that you'll have to grind down later. The unit I'm reviewing uses what the manufacturer calls advanced electric magnetic technology to keep the torch locked onto the pipe wall. In practice, that means you can set the torch, let the magnet engage, and walk the cutter around a 4-inch steel pipe without having to constantly readjust your grip. For someone who's fabricating HVAC ductwork or a custom exhaust system, that steadiness translates directly into fewer seconds spent realigning and fewer scrap pieces. Now, who actually benefits from a machine like this? If you're a professional fabricator who cuts and bevels pipe on a daily basis, the time saved by not having to switch between a separate cutter and a beveling tool is tangible. The dual-function capability means you can run a straight cut, then flip the torch to bevel the same joint without pulling out a different hand tool. In a shop that turns out 3 to 4 pipe assemblies per hour, that can shave off a couple of minutes per piece, and minutes add up. It's also a solid fit for serious DIYers who are tackling a restoration project that involves a lot of pipework, like rebuilding a classic car's exhaust or retrofitting a home's gas line. Those users already have a 220V outlet in the garage, so the power requirement isn't a deal-breaker, and they'll appreciate the professional feel of a machine that can handle both cut and bevel in one go. On the flip side, if you only need to cut a pipe once a month or you're working on a tight budget, this machine might feel like overkill. The 220V requirement means you can't just plug it into a standard 110V household circuit. You'll need a dedicated outlet or a step-up transformer, which adds a bit of installation work. For hobbyists who only occasionally need a pipe cut, a manual pipe cutter or a small handheld plasma cutter can be more cost-effective, even if they require a bit more manual finesse. Also, because the torch is built for precision, the consumables, the electrodes and the magnetic base pad need to be replaced periodically. The price of those parts isn't listed on the box, but anyone who's used a similar electric magnetic torch knows they're a recurring expense you have to budget for. Let's talk about the practical strengths that actually show up on the shop floor. The precision cutting performance is the headline feature, and it lives up to the claim when you're dealing with pipe wall thicknesses in the 1 to 3 mm range, which is common for HVAC and automotive work. The cut edge comes out clean enough that you often don't need a grinder to finish it. A quick brush with a wire wheel is enough to remove the spatter. That clean edge matters when you're welding because you get better penetration and fewer porosity issues. The beveling function is equally useful. It creates a consistent 30-degree angle that's ideal for a fillet weld, so you can jump straight into the welding step without measuring and marking each joint. Versatility is another point worth mentioning. The torch can handle not just round pipe but also square and rectangular tubing, as long as the magnetic base makes good contact. I've seen it work on a 22 steel square tube with the same ease as a round pipe, which is handy when you're fabricating a frame for a small trailer. The user-friendly operation isn't just marketing fluff. The control panel is laid out with a single power knob, a cut depth selector, and a switch to toggle the bevel mode. There's no need to flip through menus or calibrate sensors every time you change material. Once you set the depth, the machine maintains it for the whole run, so you get uniform cuts from end to end. Every tool has its trade-offs, and this torch is no exception. Because it relies on magnetic adhesion, you'll run into trouble on non-ferrous materials like aluminum or copper. The magnet simply won't stick, so you'd need a mechanical.